Hi everybody, it looks like it's 11 o'clock, so we wanted to go ahead and get started. I'm looking at everyone signing in. Please make sure that you're clicking the button in the middle that shows your agency so we know who's on the webinar. Can you guys hear me okay? If somebody could just say yes, great. Just want to make sure. Wonderful, 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 wonderful. Okay, so for the webinar today, it's going to be myself and Chuck Dooley.
Morning.
And so we wanted to talk about the quarterly reporting, and so I know that this is late, but you guys, as soon as we get the information, we like to give it out to you, and so that's one of the things we want to go over is how to submit your quarterly reports, what should they be titled, and all that great stuff. So we're going to go ahead and get started. So the first thing I wanted to do with everyone is make sure that we know the different types of reports, and I know you guys are seeing that there's 4 reports. But my goal is for you guys to actually create today 2 master copies, and then as your reporting goes on, hopefully you're just able to update the information and submit those forms as the time permits. So the first form we want to go over is called the Periodic Performance Report. So that's going to be our new PPR. Our PFR is the Periodic Financial Report. You guys are familiar with the trial balances at this point, and then your final implementation plan. So what you guys submitted to us as the final approved implementation plan, we're going to actually upload those to the system as well. So how to save your documents. So for your PPR report, you're going to save it as the grant number, which you guys, everyone should have their grant number. If you don't, email me after this and I will give it to you. So when saving all your documents, they pretty much follow the same outline. It's going to be your grant number, a space, and either the document name, which will be our PPR, and then the date that we're submitting this, the end of our grant period, which will be 09/30/17. So all the rest of your things that you're submitting, your trial balance, like I said, again, it'll be your grant number, trial balance, and the date, your periodic financial report. PFR is in the place of trial balance, so you'll have your grant number, PFR, and the date. And then lastly, your implementation plan. And so if anybody has any questions regarding that, I just want to do a quick check to make sure that we're good with saving them this certain way. All right, looks like we're good to go on that. So when you open up the documents, the first 2 pages of the periodic performance report actually give you definitions. So if you have any questions about information, I would first print off your grant agreement, which will have some information for you as well. And then, like I said, if you have any additional questions, any definitions or anything you need clarity on, it's in those first 3 pages of the periodic report that we gave you. And I will actually send out another reminder with that information in there after we finish. So the first information, again, you're getting this from your grant agreement. You're going to fill it out, grant number, your grantee's name, your organization's name, your grant number, your DUNS number, and for any of the numbers that you don't think you have as far as like your CSFA number, look in Article 4.4 of your grant agreement, Section 4.4, of your grant agreement, and that number will be provided. If there's anything that you need help on or anything, email me directly after this webinar so we can get that information to you. Another thing that we wanted to do, your program name, that's coming straight from your grant agreement. And then number 7, also that number, so your CFDA is also provided in Section 4.4. The state agency, so that's going to be the Illinois Department of Commerce and Economic Opportunity, or DCEO, that's us. Number 9, if you look at the grant period, you're going to put the start date of your grant and the end date of your grant in that box. And then for number 10, the reporting period, the end date is going to be that 9/30/17 date, because that's the end of this particular report. So your next report, you would probably have, it'll probably say 12:30 on the end of that report. Number 9 is not a fillable box. Okay. Oh. I'm looking at the comments, sorry. Hold on one second. Number 9 is not a fillable box. Okay. Number 7, Ty, to answer your question, is going to come from section 4.4 in your grant agreement. Perfect. All right. So if you guys have any questions, please use that chat box because I want to make sure that you guys, we have this understood and everybody is good to go as far as understanding their reports. So like I said, number 10, that date will change the next time you submit the report, and hopefully we'll have a refresher course. Number 11, this is not your final report, so let's hit no for that. And number 12, you're always going to hit quarterly because these are quarterly reports. Number 13, you can put today's date as the date that you are preparing these documents. All right. So for the next section, which is section 14 through 22, there is a box at the top that says alternative file or database use. Go ahead and click that box. And then in the section right underneath that, we're going to put that you're using IWDS or Illinois WorkNet in those boxes. And that is it for that complete section. The next section is going to be section 22 and 23. Section 22, you're going to leave that box blank. Section 23, you're going to check the first box, which says that it is consistent with the grant to date. And then for the bottom, make sure that you're putting the name and title of the person from your organization, as well as their phone number and email address. And this report does not need to be signed. So remember, the naming convention for the PPR, again, is your grant number, PPR, and then the date. And now we're going to turn it over to the financial report at this time.
Like Tara mentioned for the PPR, the periodic performance report, the first few pages of the report are the detailed reporting instructions and the definitions. And the same holds true for the PFR, the periodic financial report. We don't show them in this PowerPoint, but they are the first pages of the report. One other thing I wanted to mention is that if you've got the file, the report open in front of you, you could place your cursor above any of the fields or the sections and hover above that field, and a description or definition will pop up. It should be the same as the definition and the detailed reporting instructions. I'm going to briefly go over some of the elements or fields in the periodic financial report. Like Tara mentioned, the CSFA number, which is the Catalog of State Financial Assistance number, and also the CFDA number, which is the Catalog of Federal Domestic Assistance number. Both of those numbers are in the grant agreement in section 4.4. The program name and or code can be found at the top of the report deliverable schedule in the grant agreement. The indirect cost rate, which is section N or element N, that can also be found in section 4.4 of the grant agreement. The indirect cost rate that you will enter here will be your approved indirect cost rate that you entered into the CAR system, and that appears in your grant agreement. You may charge less than your approved rate, or you may charge no indirect at all, but for the purposes of this report, you want to enter your approved indirect cost rate. For element O, the approved indirect cost base, you want to enter your indirect cost base, whether it's MTDC, modified total direct costs, or salaries and fringes. If any section in the report is not applicable, just type NA for not applicable. For program restrictions, in this case, you would check no. For mandatory match, you would also check no, and then you could enter NA for any fields that don't apply. For program income and interest earned, you would enter those amounts in fields T through W. The award to date amount would be the amount from the beginning of the grant through the most recent reporting period. The current reporting period amount would be included in the award to date amount, but that would just be for the most recent reporting quarter. In this case, for the quarter ending 9/31/2017, which you'll be submitting by the end of this month. You do not have to enter any of the line item budget amounts, expenditure amounts, or match amounts at the bottom of the report. You just reference GRS, and you want to do that in the field where we've indicated under column X. The other fields in that section all require a numeric value, so if you try to type in CGRS in those fields, it won't allow you to do that. The last page of the report is where you enter the grantee representative. It does not have to be a signature. You can enter the signature is only required for year-end reporting. For the purposes of the quarterly report, you just enter the representative's name along with their email address and their telephone number and the date submitted. We should point out that the certification directly above the name and title of the authorized grantee representative is taken directly from the Federal Uniform Guidance at 2 CFR 200.414. That's a federally required certification, so that person entered in that line there is certifying that the information is true, complete, and accurate. So that covers the periodic financial report. It's pretty straightforward. Like I said, if you have any questions, you could refer to the detailed reporting instructions for the report. Hello, can everybody hear me? So if there are any questions, you can refer to the detailed reporting instructions in the report, or you can place your cursor above any one of the fields and a description and or definition will pop up. I want to go to the reporting requirements now. The report deliverable schedule in your grant agreement outlines the reporting due dates. And keep in mind that your current grant agreement is going to refer to the DGR report, but that's now been replaced by the periodic financial report and the periodic performance report. The report deliverable schedule outlines the reporting due dates. Failure to submit the reports and the trial balances by the due date in the schedule may result in, first of all, suspension of cash, otherwise referred to as a fee lock. Also, failure to report promptly may result in higher risk scores on your fiscal risk assessment. Although each grantee completes their own fiscal risk assessment, the risk assessment is reviewed and approved by your state cognizant agency. And based on risk scores, which are determined based on factors such as late reporting, there may be additional specific conditions incorporated into your grant agreement, including additional requirements for reporting. So it's very important that you report in accordance with the report deliverable schedule. Otherwise, you can be put on fee lock, which means that your cash is suspended. It also means that you would not be able to apply for other grants while that fee lock or payment suspension is in place. I also want to briefly go over the trial balance requirements. This is not something that's new. You've already been submitting trial balances with your quarterly reports. But just to clarify the requirements, we're going to go over some of the guidelines. First of all, both the Federal Uniform Guidance and your grant agreement require fund accounting. So that means you have to set up a separate cost objective or fund, or if you use QuickBooks, you may want to use a QuickBooks class for each grant, for each of your state grants. The purpose of that is so that you could generate, your accounting system can generate a grant-specific trial balance or profit and loss statement or income statement, whatever term you want to use. So that's one of the main requirements, is you have to provide a trial balance or income statement specifically for the grant. The requirements for the trial balance or income statement, they must show the cumulative grant expenses and revenue from the start of the grant through the end of the current reporting period. So for the periodic financial reports you submit by the end of the month, that's going to be for the period ending 9/30/2017. So the trial balance should correspond to the same dates. It'll be from the grant start date through 9/30/17. One thing I want to mention is that if your accounting system is unable to generate reports for periods exceeding more than one of your fiscal years, and the grant period spans more than one fiscal year, you'll need to provide reports for both fiscal years. So say, for example, your grant start date was 1/1/2016, and you're reporting through the period ending 9/30/2017. So you'll have to provide a trial balance or P&L report for your first calendar year, 1/1/16 through 12/31/16, and another trial balance for the second fiscal year, or a portion of the fiscal year, 1/1/17 through 9/30/17. And that's only if you're unable to provide a report that spans the entire grant period. Otherwise, you just provide a single report for the entire grant period through the current reporting date. Another thing I want to point out is that DOL requires reporting on an accrual basis. And that's specifically in the WIOA final rule at 20 CFR 683.200. So all expenditures for these grants have to be on an accrual basis. If your accounting system is on a cash basis, you don't have to change to an accrual basis accounting system, but you do have to report on an accrual basis. So you'll have to provide additional information regarding accruals, specifically, for example, payroll amounts that were incurred in the previous month that aren't paid until the following month, and unpaid bills and other expenditures that are incurred during the reporting period but are not paid until the following period. If your account structure does not align with the grant budget line items, you must provide a trial balance crosswalk or spreadsheet that reconciles the trial balance to the amounts reported by line item in GRS. Any differences between the trial balance and GRS, for example, differences caused by accruals or adjustments, should be accounted for in the trial balance crosswalk. And we're going to give an example of a trial balance and a crosswalk shortly. One thing I want to mention or emphasize is that the trial balance must tie to the expenditures reported in GRS for the corresponding period. So if you're submitting a trial balance for the period ending 9/30/2017, you want to make sure that your expenditures in GRS for the period through September 2017 are reported in the correct period and month, and that they tie to the trial balance for the corresponding period. One thing to keep in mind is that the reporting deadline in GRS is the 20th of the following month, which actually works out to your advantage because it gives you a an extra 20 days to report costs. For example, December expenditures must be reported by January 20th. After the 20th of the following month, you are locked out of the prior month in GRS. And two of the tools that you have available to you to ensure proper reporting are the GRS 351 screen, which you use in combination with the 352 screen to report costs in GRS. And we're going to look at a screen print of the 351 screen in a few minutes, but the 351 screen has a line for the current month and it has a line for the following month. So you want to make sure that you enter the costs on the correct line. And then if you want to verify what expenditures you reported in GRS, you can use the 362 screen. The 362 screen is a view-only screen. You can't enter any information on that screen. You just use that to show what expenditures you reported through the most recent reporting period. On this slide, we have an example of a trial balance. So you have one column for debits and another column for credits, and the debits, needless to say, should equal the credits. A trial balance will also have your balance sheet accounts like cash and payables in addition to your income statement accounts such as expenditures and revenue. A trial balance is what is preferred, but you can also provide a P&L or income statement that shows revenue and expenditures only. The trial balance must be generated by your accounting system because we're using the trial balance to corroborate the costs reported in GRS and to approve the reporting. An Excel spreadsheet would not be acceptable to submit in lieu of your trial balance. The trial balance or income statement that you provide, in addition to your periodic financial report, must show revenue as well as expenditures, and it must show cumulative costs from the grant start date through the end of the most recent reporting quarter. In this example on this slide, it shows the grant number. So this trial balance is specifically for this grant, and it shows the reporting period from January 1st, 2015, which is the grant start date for this example, through 9/30/2015, which is the most recent reporting period. And it shows grant revenue of $206,000, and then it shows grant expenditures broken down by your account numbers of $206,000. And a trial balance crosswalk is not required. However, if there are any differences between the trial balance and the costs that you reported in GRS, you should provide a crosswalk so that we can reconcile the costs reported in GRS to the trial balance. And reasons for providing a crosswalk would include if the costs in the trial balance do not equal the costs in GRS, either because there are accruals that you've estimated that you've reported in GRS that aren't in your accounting system, or because of adjustments that are either not in your accounting system or aren't in GRS. So the crosswalk should account for any differences between the trial balance and GRS. You can also provide a trial balance if there's not a one-to-one correspondence between the GRS line items and your accounts in your chart of accounts and trial balance. So in this example, the GRS reporting line items are on the left in the rows, and then the grantees' account numbers are in the columns. In this example, for line item 1,000, work experience wages, the grantee is reporting that information in their accounting system under 5,000 staff salaries and wages, and also 5,001 staff fringe benefits. So the total amount of work experience wages reported in GRS is $170,000, which equals the $160,000 in the grantee's account number 5001 and the $10,000 in the grantee's account number 5002. This trial balance crosswalk, like I mentioned, is only required if the trial balance does not tie to the amount reported in GRS. This is a suggested format. You could provide something similar in a different format, or in some cases, you could even write down on your trial balance, you could even write down the GRS line item by each account number, if that's something that somebody would be able to use to reconcile between GRS and your trial balance. Also, we briefly mentioned that program income and program interest are on your periodic financial report. Those are reported on a different screen in GRS. Those are reported on screen 371. And if you need detailed instructions on reporting program income and interest in GRS, you can refer to the GRS reporting manual, which you can obtain from the grant manager, Tara. So you may also have differences between trial balance and GRS due to program income and interest, which are reported on a different screen. So if that's the case, you may also want to add a column for program income and interest on the crosswalk. That pretty much covers everything I wanted to discuss about the trial balance requirements. I want to briefly go over some of the 351 screen in GRS and also the 362 screen in GRS. The 351 screen in GRS is a screen that you use to report costs. And like I mentioned previously, you have at the bottom of the screen print, you have two fields to report costs. So let's say that it's January 20th. So as of January 20th, you're going to have two fields where you can report costs. You'll have the December 2016 field for the previous month, and then you'll have the January 2017 field for the current month. So if you're reporting for the quarter ending 12/31/16, you want to make sure that your expenditures are reported on the December 2016 line, not on the January 2017 line. After the 20th, or after 4:30 to 5 o'clock on the 20th of January, you're going to be closed out of reporting for the December 2016 line for the previous month, and you'll only be able to report costs for the current month. So when you report costs on a monthly basis, you want to make sure that you're entering them in the correct month. One more thing that I want to cover is the GRS 362 screen. You can go to the screen to see what you reported for the grant. The green fields are the fields that you could enter information in to filter the report. You'll have to enter the grant number by the grant field, the third line down, and then you can filter the report by the report dates. So you can leave the reporting from date blank, because that will automatically default to the grant start date and capture all information going back to the beginning of the grant. But you could, for the through date, you can enter the most recent reporting period, 09/2017. So after you enter the grant number and you enter the through date to filter the report, you hit enter, and that will show all costs reported through the through date by GRS expense code or line item. And so that'll let you know what your costs are for the reporting period, and that's what you should tie out to your trial balance. And if the amount in GRS based on the 362 screen is wrong, you may have to go back in GRS and make an adjustment. However, like I mentioned previously, you can't make adjustments to closed out periods. So if you reported costs late and therefore your GRS is going to be off from the trial balance, you should include that in the trial balance crosswalk so that we can reconcile the GRS costs to what's on your trial balance. So that covers everything I wanted to talk about for the PFR, the periodic financial report, and the 362 screen, or the GRS screens. Are there any questions?
And go ahead.
Yeah, and this only applies, Nicole asked a question, and this only applies if there is program income or program interest related to the grant. Obviously, those are not grant costs, although you would expend, it's a requirement that you expend program income and interest on the grant because DOL grants require the addition method for accounting for program interest. But you would not report that under costs. So you can report that in GRS on screen number 371. And there's information, there are detailed instructions for reporting program income and interest on screen 371 in the GRS user manual. And like I said, that only applies if you have program income or interest that you need to report for the grant. There's another question. Is it required that I submit copies of the GRS reports with my quarterly reports? I know that some other departments and maybe some bureaus within DCEO are requiring that you print off the GRS screen to submit along with your trial balance. That is not a requirement for these grants. So you don't have to submit the GRS screen print along with the trial balance. You only have to submit the trial balance along with your periodic financial report, not the screen print.
And I think I'm going to answer Joseph's question. So one of the things I wanted to just kind of do, when you guys are signing into the webinars from today on out, please put your first and last name. I do see some people with like just one initial or like an email address. If you can go ahead and put your first and last name so that we know which organizations are signing in and who from the organization is representing. Also, if you could do the poll so we know which organizations, like I said, are coming into the webinar. Joseph, to answer your question, no, you do not mail the PPR or the PFR. Let me go back to the first screen. So Joseph, for anybody that's sending these documents in, you're going to have one email that you send to me, hopefully by the due date, so I can have time to look over them, and especially because these are the first time we're doing these new reports. So if you guys could please don't wait till the last minute to send them in, that would help us out greatly, just in case there's any adjustments or anything that someone needs to make. But you're going to send one email, and the documents that you are going to send in this one email are going to be PDFs. And so you're going to have your periodic performance report, your trial balance, and your periodic financial report. Those of you that have new grants, which are the apprenticeship people, you are going to submit your implementation plans. My DEI people, you do not need to do that. Just submit those first three. And like I said, the apprenticeship people, please submit your implementation plans as well. But everything should be in one email, and it all should be a PDF. Does that answer that question? Quarterly reports, and then put 9/30/17. If you have any additional questions, this webinar was recorded. We will have it up on the website. If you do not have access to the actual reports that I sent out in the email, please check back with your grant managers. No, Lisa, it's just the implementation plan that you sent in that was approved. And we have a couple more questions coming in, so we're just holding on for those. I will send the PowerPoint out to everyone. Jamila, that is correct. Go ahead.
Oh, I'm sorry. I was going to say that the PowerPoint is in the files at the bottom,
Yeah.
in the lower left-hand corner, so it's available
Right now.
to download now. Also,
John and Judy, do you see that in the bottom left-hand corner? So if you look at your screen, on the left-hand corner at the bottom, it says 2017 Reporting PowerPoint. If you click that and then hit download the files, you will actually have this PowerPoint. Lisa, I think that's an offline question. Could you please send me that in the email? And let me, 1 second regarding your CFDA numbers.
it'll also be in the budget section at the end, the budget section.
Nicole, can you check your budget section at the end of your grant agreement? Perfect. So everyone, if you're looking for those numbers, they are in your budget section, which would be your CFDA number. It's in your budget section. And your CSFA number. The monthly expenditure report that was completed on the first.
Yeah, some of the older grants, like the DEI grants, may not have the CSFA number because that's a new requirement from the state's GATA unit. But we can provide that. It's also on the state's GATA website, which is at grants.illinois.gov. That's the state's GATA website, and then you can click on CSFA, and then it'll bring you to a screen where you can do a search based on the program name, and that'll show not only the CSFA number, but the CFDA number. Otherwise, if it's not in your grant agreement, and it probably won't be in some of the older grant agreements, then we could also provide that via email to you. Now, the reporting requirement in GRS is monthly, and then, so you'll report monthly, on a monthly basis. So you'll report the 20th of every month for the prior month, and you can report prior to the 20th of the month. So for the current quarter that you're going to report for, the quarter ending 9/30/17, which you'll be sending by the end of this month, that's going to cover the reporting for every month from the grant start date through September 30th. So that's going to include your reporting. Let's say your grant started July 1, 2017. So that's going to include your reporting for July, August, and September. So you should report every month.
And that website again was
Illinois.gov.
grants.illinois.gov. Lisa, I'm sending it out as well. We are the same as Nicole, so let's see. The CFDA number is listed there, but not the CSFA number. Okay, so for those of you, like I said, these are new forms coming out, so there's still some hiccups with them. But if you look on grants.illinois.gov, you can get those numbers provided there. And it looks like we have a couple more questions coming. Joel, this is your, okay.
Yeah, and I just looked it up. The CSFA number for the Disability Employment Initiative is 420300073.
Perfect. Thank you, Nicole, for that information. And that information is also in the email that I provided to you guys. That information is there as well as far as your numbers. For the apprenticeship grant, the CSFA number is 420300075. And then, let me make sure we don't have any more. Oh, that's, yeah, and then disability is 420300773. So I will provide that in the link so we all can have that. Nicole's provided the one for DEI. If you are apprenticeship, here's your number right here. Yes, ma'am, Lisa, that's the same one. The number I just put out is your number. We have a couple more people coming into the chat. Let's see. So in the meantime, please make sure you're doing the polls. And then don't forget, underneath the chat box, we have the reporting PowerPoint that I think everyone should print out. And make sure you share that with your team. If you're the grant manager or the financial person that's only on the webinar, please submit that information to your team so that everyone is aware of how to save your documents, how to send them in. If you have any questions, I am available directly after this webinar. If you send me an email, that'll be faster for me to get back with you. And let's see, we have one more question coming in.
And while we're waiting for more questions, I just wanted to mention that the requirements for the periodic financial report and the periodic performance report, those are new requirements that were implemented by the state's data unit. So those are going to take effect for the current period ending 9/30/17, which you'll have to submit the reports for by the end of the month. And the data unit gives state agencies additional flexibility to customize the requirements for their own needs. The DCEO's Office of Accountability may come up with additional requirements or additional guidance. So if we receive any more information, we'll pass that along to you. But otherwise, we wanted to provide this information prior to the reporting deadline at the end of the month.
And it looks like we have 2 more people typing in. I just want to make sure we're answering everyone's questions, and that way we can hopefully get some reports in. Like I said, if you have any additional questions, let me know. But please refer to this PowerPoint and the email I sent out first. I don't know if Debbie and Carmelita are still typing their questions, but it keeps going in and out. Let me know. All right, for those of you that feel like you are ready to go and submit your documents, you can go ahead and leave the webinar if you would like. Like I said, this will be posted on Illinois WorkNet. You already have the PowerPoint listed for additional reference or anything like that. And also I did send out a reminder email yesterday that has the 2 forms in there. So if you have any additional questions, like I said, send me an email, but please refer to those documents first, because that, I think, will answer your questions a lot faster. If there's anything else that you think you need from us, let us know. Thank you for the work that you are doing. Like I said, these are new forms, so we are, in the midst of it. I see one more question coming in. Let's see. Maybe not. All right, looks like we can say 15, back again. There we go. Oh, thank you. All right, thank you from the Cabot Group. All right, Cabot Group, thank you guys. Like I said, let me know if you have any additional questions, everyone. And just like I said, when you're signing into webinars, please make sure you put in your first and last name so we can know where groups are attending and do the polls. All right, have a great day.